Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Music Mess. My name is Sarah, and I'm super excited to jump into today's video. A couple weeks ago, the Queen made a return with her release of Black is King, and I have watched it oh my god, just too many times. And it's absolutely stunning. The fashion involved is absolutely incredible. Revisiting the album was fantastic as well. Always with these visual albums, getting the visuals just totally changes up the vibe of the music, doesn't it? It was just like a brand new experience going through that album. So in honor of Beyonce, I just thought maybe we could talk a little bit about how Beyonce revolutionized the way that artists can drop albums and the way that we intake albums. And I want to do that by first asking you, where were you December 13th, 2013? I am, of course, talking about Beyonce's surprise drop of her self-titled album back in 2013, where she not only dropped her album by surprise, but an entire visual album. I can tell you where I was. I was at home. I was in my basement on the computer watching the whole thing in the dark, but it was absolutely cinematic. Incredible. I wish I had a better story for that. I don't know if you guys remember, this is 7 years ago now, but this was such a huge deal. A star of her magnitude dropping a surprise album, and every song had a visual, and if you watched the whole thing, it was a movie. It wasn't just a bunch of music videos, right? It was a cinematic experience, for real. She was the first artist of her caliber to do it. She is not the first artist to drop a surprise album. Well, the first bigger mainstream artist to drop a surprise album was Radiohead in 2007, and they dropped In Rainbows. And there was a few others sort of after that, leading up to this. And if we set the scene, too, for 2013, this is... Spotify's around, but it's not too huge yet. Apple Music doesn't come out until 2015. Tidal doesn't come out until 2014. This is still the days of iTunes and downloading your MP3s, and all the stuff that you had on your playlist was you owned it. Remember that? So I think what interests me so much about this is she has a little mini series that you can watch on YouTube right now, and it is just so good. If you haven't seen it, oh my god. Where she's being interviewed and she talks about this process of why she made what she made. And I think it's really interesting to see how she is very aware of the music industry and the user experience, which I guess makes sense, but it's still it's not often you get to hear Beyonce interviewed these days. And it's not often we get to hear artists talk about the music industry in that kind of a way, in this real business type way. So she talks about how she feels right now, or I guess back then, but I would argue still to a degree, people experience music differently. And she goes on saying, I remember seeing Thriller on TV with my family, and it was an event, which I think is really interesting to think about how Thriller really was kind of an OG event like that, where it was a 10-minute music video. And she goes on saying, I miss that immersive experience. Now people only listen to a few seconds of a song on their iPods. They don't really invest in a whole album. It's all about the single and the hype. There's so much that gets in between the artist and the fan. I felt like I don't want anybody to give the message when my record is coming out. I just want this to come out when it's ready, and from me to my fans, which I think is really beautiful, because it really, there was nothing in the way. It was just her dropping this gift, and that's what it felt like back then. Remember, we had no idea that there was going to be another Beyonce album coming. We had no idea that she was even in the works. Nothing, which is incredible and pretty hard to accomplish. And she talks about how it was important to her to make it a movie, to make it an experience, which I think is so true. And even now, when you look back at Lemonade, or you look at Black is King, all three of these things are moments in my life where I remember actually taking the time to set up the vibe at home with your snacks and your drinks, and you're sitting there and your friends are involved and you're all sitting there experiencing this brand new album front to back, and all three of them, the conversations went on for forever. Remember Lemonade? That was... Beyonce's just on this track of turning the album into something so memorable and so conversation worthy and so above and beyond just a musical experience. Who else is doing it? And when she first dropped this album in 2013, obviously we talked about how artists were doing it before her, but she was the first one of her caliber to do it in this way. So then after her, you get Drake doing it in 2015, Rihanna's Auntie in 2016, Kendrick Lamar, and J. Cole, and arguably Ariana Grande with Thank You Next. Although that's also just like an interesting conversation with Thank You Next, where Ariana kind of went against the whole like, oh, I don't want to have like a 2-year pop cycle of like, this is my thing, like I want to drop music like I'm a hip hop artist, which is kind of its own conversation. But yeah, I mean, Thank You Next was a surprise album. And of course it's like carried on till today with Taylor Swift and Folklore, right? Like, it's its own thing, and it feels so personal when an artist just drops the surprise album on you, and it's like, as fans, it's just like, oh, thank God, because it has two effects, right? It has like Folklore in the middle of the pandemic, like, oh, thank God we've got this new music and fantastic new content to kind of lift the spirits of such a crappy year. Or it can have a different effect of like, oh, I've been having a great year and this album comes out and it's only getting better from here, right? And then there are those who don't do it all that successfully, like U2 Songs of Innocence 2014. Wasn't that a mess? But that was again before the years of streaming, back when what you had on your like iTunes and your MP3 was like chosen and very personal, you know. So when they forced it into everyone's iTunes account and then they had to go backwards and release how to delete it off. But I think it's just really telling of Beyonce to show like, this woman understands her relationship with her fans. She understands that it's not about the hype of the next new single. It's about creating cultural moments and conversations that we're going to talk about forever. And she adds more to the conversation than necessarily just the music. It is the fashion. It is the visuals. It is the references. No one references like Beyonce references. So in the wake of Black is King, I just want to take a beat and bring us back to 2013 and remind you all where this all started from. And I'm so happy that she has carried on doing this and giving us these moments, and so happy that so far it's like, how is she topping herself? How is every time like this is a bigger, better experience? Like, galaxy brain. So big shout out to Beyonce. Thank you so much for dropping this. We needed this so much right now. Definitely let me know in the comments which was your favorite Beyonce surprise drop album. That's it for me today. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below about what you'd love to see in the next video. Hope you guys have a good one. Thanks again.